Imagine picking up Grand Blue and playing some matches, but all you're losing to is this. You're dumbfounded. You've never encountered this. Next time, you block. Alright, let's do it. So, you can't mash? This character is annoying, but maybe you can just block everything, right?
Great!
Alright, this character is dumb. You hate this game. You think that this character is just impossible to deal with. You think there's zero counterplay and you can't do shit. If you've thought this, then you aren't alone. A lot of people, my friend included, think that Beatrix is annoying and overpowered. As a day one Beatrix player, it's my opinion that people are just overreacting to how strong she is and complaining about things that have a lot less merit than you think. Especially now that she's been nerfed, I think she's tuned alright. And she doesn't really need any more nerfs. In fact, if they keep nerfing her, she's going to be really bad, I think. If you think this character is overpowered right now on this current patch, I invite you to stay and watch this entire video and try to view this video with as little bias as possible. Today, I will cover what the 3 main sequences that people are the most annoyed with and people consider no counterplay. I will give arguments for why they are very fair and how they have counterplay. This is the sequence that inspired this entire video. At first, it might seem like it's super oppressive and has zero counterplay, but let me just tell you, this has a lot more counterplay than you think. The reason this string is so strong is because her 236H, that's her quarter circle forward H, is +2. This means that normally the defender can't really mash here. They just have to take whatever's coming. And this is what allows people to get caught mashing because they think that it's not plus and they just mash. This is where the issue arises. Once you get hit enough with this move and you mash enough times, you're gonna start blocking. And once you keep blocking, you're just allowing Beatrix to continue doing her thing. What you don't realize is that you allowing her to do her thing is what's leading to the zero counterplay idea. And this could all be avoided if you realize that the first thing, the 236 Fireball, is not as airtight as you think. Beatrix is not as advantageous as you might think. If we go back into training mode and turn on the frame data, you can see that the Beatrix's Fireball is in fact +2, so that is the same, right? But what we're missing is this. You aren't point blank +2. This is to say that you aren't +2 at point blank range. You're at a pretty sizable distance that necessitates the far use of your medium bow. And this is important for 2 reasons. Number 1 is because this isn't your close medium. This is your far medium, which is 2 frames slower. This is a 9 frame move, which means it has a lot of holes. And then the second thing is that since it's mid-screen and there's a distance between you guys, there's a lot more space for the defender to do something. I've labbed this exact sequence with every character in the game, and every character has something they can do to escape this pressure mid-screen. There are 2 pretty universal ways to counter this sequence. Most characters in the game have at least one normal in their kit that they can either trade or clash with Beatrix's farm normal, or they can beat it outright. 26 out of the 32 total characters can easily beat this sequence by mashing far left, which all of them are fast 6 frames. Other medium normals or sweeps can trade or clash with far medium. While trading and clashing isn't exactly countering Beatrix, it offers you a lot more authority to win that exchange than just taking Beatrix's pressure. Some characters have a lot more counters to Beatrix, and some have a lot fewer ways to counteract Beatrix. Let's take Gran as an example because he's a lot of people's first character. His far light beats Beatrix like a lot of other characters, but his far medium actually just clashes because it's fast. His 2M is able to trade just because of how the hitboxes work, and his sweep just beats her out. Now let's look at Belial, who has a lot of counters to Beatrix. His 5L, like a lot of other characters, can beat Beatrix outright, but uniquely his 2L can also beat her outright. And his 5M is also very fast and 2-hitting, so it can obviously beat her here. And his 2M can trade, and his counter always just counters, so this is just an afterthought that I'm just mentioning here, but I thought I should mention it. Terra is probably the worst character to play into Beatrix because the only thing she can really do is use her ultimate version of her DP or use her supers, and all those are bad ideas because they cost meter, right? So there's no counterplay? Wrong. So even despite everything that we've talked about, there is one thing that most characters in this game can do meterlessly mid-screen to Beatrix when she's doing this string, and that is simply to backdash. 30 out of the 32 characters in this game can do this. The only two that can't have counters of their own. This would be Vasaraga and Vegeta. And I will just show a couple examples of their counters to Beatrix here as I continue talking about this topic. So, to summarize, everyone can do something meterlessly to escape the pressure mid-screen. And number two, every time a defender is put into the string, they have agency. It might not be the best thing to be -2 from that range, but it certainly isn't the worst. There's certainly things you as a defender can do to punish the Beatrix player. Well, at this point you might be asking, well, if far medium is that bad, can Beatrix do something else? Well, yes, but it carries the same amount of risks as everything else. Well, the first thing you might think of is, can't I use another medium normal that reaches? Well, yes, so the first thing you might think of is 2M, which is an 8-frame move and would mitigate a lot of the counterplay, right, that the defender can do if you are the Beatrix. But what you fail to recognize is that 2M whiffs completely on standing opponents in the string. So, if your opponent knows that you like to mash 2M after your fireball, all they have to do is just stand block, and they can just whiff punish you. Well, then can't you just do a far light button? You're right for thinking that you can just use a faster light button, but you're wrong in the fact that far light doesn't connect for most of these ranges, so you would end up whiffing and your opponent could whiff punish you for having done that. If all of these points have not managed to convince you yet, I have one more argument against the sequence not being overpowered. If we take Gran as an example again, he himself has a string that is more oppressive than Beatrix's string, and it's basically the same thing. So he can block string you into his fireball, and then frame trap you, okay? The key difference is that his fireball is +3, so less counterplay, and his medium is 7 frames, not 9. So this makes it actually impossible to punish him at all without a move that has invincibility. So if the argument is that Beatrix is overpowered because of this string, then by that logic, Gran is several times more overpowered than Beatrix, right? But I'd wager that people don't really think Gran is overpowered, so I rest my case. The next two sections are going to be a lot shorter because there are just universal answers to these sequences. So the first one I'm going to talk about is her dive kick, the one where she rises and then she comes down and is +4. So you might just look at that +4 and be like, well, that definitely has 0 counterplay, you can't do anything, right? Well, the thing is, the rising portion and the downward portion aren't a true block string, So you can block string into the rising part, but you can do a lot of stuff to interrupt the downward part of her dive kick, and you don't have to take the +4. So the most common way to do this is by evading forward through the Beatrix player, and if you do this fast enough, or you just mash it, right? It's -1, you're still -1, but you're at a distance where in most cases Beatrix can't even hit you with her flying. So it's -1 at a significantly further distance. The only exception to this would be if you are cornered against Beatrix, but there's other things you can do. So you can just mash to get out of it, or you can just jump. It's a lot more easy to get out of this than her fireball sequence. Okay. The second sequence I'm going to talk about is, well, this isn't really a sequence, but more of a special move that she uses in neutral, and that's her riding free skill, which is her downwards lariat that hits low. And so a lot of frustration comes because you try to mash her out of it, but a lot of the times it doesn't work. But let me tell you that for most characters, you can just use their sweep, and it has a good priority, and it will just oftentimes beat it outright. The light and medium version of Riding's Free is easy to counter because you have a lot of time to react. But as you go further and further, it becomes harder. So the heavy version of her skill, actually, you might want to do it preemptively because it's really hard and it's really easy to mistime it on reaction. And the ultimate version of her Riding Free, you just have to react. You can't react anymore. You just have to predict it. There's no other way. But the thing is, the critical thing is that you can just block all of these versions, right? There's nothing Beatrix can do from mid-screen that is an overhead. So defaulting to a low block will just solve this issue entirely and make it a non-issue, right? Because no version of her Riding Free skill, well, medium used to be plus on block, but they nerfed it, so it's -4 now, right? But no version now is plus. They're all minus. So if she uses this, she's going to be minus right in front of you. So you automatically just take back your turn. If you're still watching to this point, thank you, and for watching everything, because this is the type of thing that people need to watch in order to improve at the game, because a lot of times people will just look at a move and think it's overpowered, but don't actually train against it, and so they never realize that that move isn't that good, and it's only that good because the person refused to even try to learn how to counter it. So I hope that this video offered a lot of counterplay tips against Beatrix, and to not let Beatrix get away with all this stuff in the video, right? And I hope that this makes playing against Beatrix a lot easier to deal with. And I didn't know where to put this at the end of the video, but I just thought I should mention, right? Charlotta, yeah, Charlotta players, okay? I don't want to hear you ever complain about Beatrix's fireball pressure. You know why? You know why? Because you can jump. Have a nice day.